For decades, fans have wondered about the enemy senseis from the Karate Kid movies. Which one was the best? And who would win in a fight? Some Terry Silver fans think he might be the strongest enemy. Or would John Kreese, Sato, or Colonel Dugan beat Terry? And now with the Cobra Kai series being renewed for both a 4th and 5th season, some of these matchups might be possible in the future. Today, we're going to see how these sensei villains would stack up in a fight. I'm Ken Cole. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share, and let me know who you think is the winning sensei in the comments. So we're going to look at the main sensei antagonists from the 4 Karate Kid movies. We have Cobra Kai sensei John Kreese from part 1, Miyagi's former best friend, Chozen's uncle, and Miyagi-Do sensei Sato from part 2, Kreese's fellow Cobra Kai sensei Terry Silver from part 3, and I guess we can call him a sensei, Colonel Dugan from Next Karate Kid. They were all beaten by Miyagi except for Sato, which we'll get back to. During the entire span of the Karate Kid movies, we never saw these senseis fight each other, and actually the last time we saw Terry and Kreese, they were best buddies. So we're going to try to figure out their skill level by what we know of their backgrounds and how they fought against Mr. Miyagi. First up is John Kreese from Karate Kid Parts 1, 2, and 3. Kreese has a unique fighting achievement in that he was U.S. Army Karate Champion from 1970 through 1972, making him a 3-time champion for the entire U.S. Army. That's quite an honor. We see a little of his pre-champion skill in the Cobra Kai Vietnam flashbacks, where he defeats his own captain in a death match.
No mercy.
After these flashback events, he had his karate glory days and established Cobra Kai, although it's not clear yet how that all happened. Though by the time we see him as a sensei in 1984 in Karate Kid Part 1, it seems as though his best fighting days have passed. He teaches the Cobra Kai style in his San Fernando Valley dojo, and his students place highly in the regional All-Valley tournament. But we hardly ever see him using his karate skills. In Karate Kid 1, we see him take down one of his students by surprise, which doesn't take a ton of skill. In Karate Kid 2, he decides to go after Miyagi with a front punch, which Miyagi dodges. Even with a bloody fist, he does the same thing again, telegraphing with a So obviously Miyagi smokes Kreese by letting Kreese beat himself. The next time we see Kreese fight is in Karate Kid 3, again facing off against Mr. Miyagi. It's been almost a year, and I bet Kreese has been obsessing about his loss to Mr. Miyagi, coming up with a new plan of attack for his revenge. Oh, wait. It's the exact same move that didn't work twice before. And it doesn't work again. Then he varies it up with a front kick and then a punch, which also doesn't work. So it doesn't seem like Kreese has a lot of fighting variety in his karate tool belt, just straightforward attacks. Obviously, he was a karate champion a little over 10 years prior. Still, we don't see him fight much at all in the movies, and you have to wonder if Kreese is a little rusty, or maybe he's just not as good as he was back in the Army. We do see him fight a lot more in the Cobra Kai series. He and Johnny fight twice, and are somewhat evenly matched the first time. And he pretty much loses to Johnny the second time. He has to nail Johnny from behind with a cheap shot to get an advantage. It's tricky to figure out skill level here because he's a bit older than Johnny and possibly hasn't fought a skilled opponent for decades. Next up is Sato from Karate Kid Part 2. And Sato is fascinating because he was Miyagi's former best friend and learned Miyagi-Do karate from Miyagi's father.
I thought you said your family's karate was only taught from father to son.
Miyagi as father make exception in this case.
Everything was going great until the wealthy Sato was set to marry Yukie. Then Miyagi decided to fall in love with his best friend's girl. Sato was really ticked and challenged Miyagi to fight, likely to the death.
Of course, Sato feel disgrace. So, challenge Miyagi to fight to save his honor.
But Miyagi decided to flee Okinawa instead of fighting his best friend. So by the time Miyagi and Daniel return to Okinawa, they see that Sato is now Master Sato and has the largest karate dojo in Okinawa and is the official instructor for the US military. We don't see him teach, but we see his nephew Chosen teaching a class. He's also become a business mogul, owning all of Tomi Village and charging all of the residents rent.
So what, so everyone owns their own little farm?
Nah, Sato own village rent.
That's a bummer.
You're right.
We don't see Sato actually fight, though we see him try to break a beam of wood unsuccessfully, and we see him getting ready to punch Miyagi before Yukie interrupts them. Later, he was set to fight Miyagi to the death until a storm hit.
Oh no!
Hey, Sato's in there!
And Miyagi saved Sato's life. So we can't say for sure what his skill level is, but he seems to have much of the same karate knowledge as Miyagi from the same teacher. Next, we have Terry Silver from Karate Kid 3. Terry is John Kreese's best friend and fellow Cobra Kai karate master. They served together in Vietnam and endured traumatic experiences together, which we saw in the Season 3 Cobra Kai flashbacks. Like Sato, he's also rich and a business mogul. But unlike Sato, Terry's business Dynatox operates outside the law, dumping toxic waste.
What do you mean you can't dump it in Borneo? Who in Borneo knows what chloride sludge is?
And bribing government officials.
Bribe them as usual.
Definitely check out my previous videos on Terry, and you'll see that Terry is pretty much the ultimate evil sensei. He works psychologically against his enemies, but more than that, he's an active, practicing martial artist, at least in Karate Kid 3, and probably continuing into Cobra Kai Season 4. He spars against hired fighters in his spare time, and we see him doing katas when he's alone. We also see him train both Daniel and Mike Barnes. Terry Silver also faces off against Mr. Miyagi. He amusingly watches Kreese get dominated, then mocks Miyagi to his face. When attacking Miyagi, he goes in with a kick. But when Miyagi dodges, Terry adjusts and pivots his attack with a spinning kick, then goes in hard with 2 punches before being thrown to the wall. Then he tries again with a jump front kick and a wild spinning strike before Miyagi pushes him back. Then Terry circles before going in with a kick that doesn't work, gets kicked by Miyagi, and retreats to the wall. Then Terry goes all in with a charging punch before Miyagi throws him into the mirror. So Terry definitely brings everything he has against Miyagi, and while he doesn't land a hit on him, he shows a lot of physical skill, ability to adapt, and variety in his attacks. Finally, we have Colonel Dugan from the next Karate Kid. Colonel Dugan runs security at Julie Pierce's high school, and he's also head of the militarized group of hall monitors called the Alphas. He teaches his student alphas how to deal with kids who drop trash.
Some kid drops a candy wrapper, you make him pick it up and eat it.
And he trains his students in martial arts just well enough so he can fight them and win every time. Like Kreese and Terry, he was in the army.
By the time I'd left the army, I had learned one thing.
But we don't know if he was ever a champion level fighter like Kreese. The only time we see a true test of Colonel Dugan's skills is against Miyagi in the final fight.
Enough! It's not over. Then we finish.
Colonel Dugan actually manages to grab Miyagi's shirt for a second before Miyagi locks his hand and pushes him back. Amazing expression of shock from Colonel Dugan. Then just like Kreese, Dugan goes for a front punch before Miyagi deflects and actually strikes Dugan in the face. Dugan goes in for another front punch, but Miyagi is all over it and knocks him to the ground. Dugan throws more front punches for the 3rd time, and Miyagi just catches them before wailing on Dugan for a bit and then finishes him off with Miyagi breath. So Dugan also loses to Miyagi in style, and he's even more guilty than Kreese of trying the same failed attack over and over. Also, Miyagi lands more blows on Dugan than anyone else, so there doesn't seem to be much in Dugan's karate toolbox, defensively or offensively, or maybe his best fighting days are behind him. All right, we have our 4 contenders. Do you have a favorite? I'm going to give my fighter rankings for the senseis worst to best. Here we go. Coming in at number 4 is Colonel Dugan. We're not really sure about his full background and knowledge of martial arts, except that it likely comes from his time in the army. He loses to Miyagi, and during the fight, he uses the same basic move 3 times in a row. He doesn't show an ability to adapt to his opponent, And the fact that Miyagi wins by blowing air in his face shows this guy is probably dealing with mental issues that would keep him from being the best sensei fighter. Third place goes to John Kreese. This is tough because he was a 3-time karate champion in the US Army. But by the time we see him as a sensei in the movies, his glory days are behind him. We don't see him as a practicing martial artist, and we only really see him fight twice against Miyagi. Even in these fights, Kreese almost always attacks with the same punch moves. We see more variety in his fights with his old student Johnny in the Cobra Kai series, but even here, he's bested by Johnny in the 3rd season finale and only gets the upper hand with a cheap shot. Second place, and this is hard to say, goes to Terry Silver. Terry clearly has the most physical skill that we've seen, a consistent training routine in his spare time, and a variety of martial arts knowledge. In his fight with Miyagi, he adapts to his opponent's movements, unlike the other senseis, and tries a variety of attacks. So he comes up the best against Miyagi. In addition to that, he's an effective teacher and is able to psychologically manipulate his opponents to give himself the advantage. And first place goes to Sato. This is a bit unique because this #1 ranking is based solely on his reputation. We've never seen him actually fight. He trained with Miyagi's father, likely has the same karate knowledge as Miyagi, and has the biggest karate dojo in Okinawa, where he's known as a master who trains the US military. He should be about even with Miyagi in skill, who decimated the other senseis. So, first place goes to Sato. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. And yes, I understand that some of you really think that Terry is the best of the senseis. So maybe in the future we'll go into why Sato might be way overhyped and Terry might still be the best. Sound good? Anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe, like, and share, and I'll see you next time.